What's up, guys? This is Matt Singer with Erin Whitney from ScreenCrush, and we are here today to talk about Ghostbusters. Who would have thought when they announced a new Ghostbusters that it would be the most contentious movie of all time?
The most contentious.
It's unbelievable. I can't believe that we have to sit here and talk about Ghostbusters in this way.
Yeah, didn't expect this at all.
No.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's Ghostbusters.
Right.
Busting is supposed to make you feel good. It says it right in the song.
Right, yeah. And what's ghostbusting have to do with gender? It's just ghosts.
It's just ghosts. All right, let's do it. Let's get into our thoughts, first of all, just about the movie in general.
Right.
Did you like it?
I enjoyed the movie. Yeah, I had a good time. I thought it was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the cast just in general.
Yeah.
And I think I could watch the four of them kind of do anything. I could watch them make a sandwich and it would be pretty funny to me.
The best part of the movie is the cast.
Exactly.
They're the four women. They're great.
Yeah.
They're great together. They're great Ghostbusters. They're fun. They're funny.
Yeah.
They look like they're having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have
Definitely agree.
this kind of infectious vibe that you get from them, which I feel like the original movie really did too.
Yeah.
And I think the movie is at its best when it just kind of lets them riff and be fun together and be Ghostbusters.
Completely, yeah. If you don't like these four actresses, then maybe you don't like the movie. Regardless of if they're women, if you don't enjoy their humor, then
Right.
perhaps
Right.
you won't like it. But I don't think, how could you not? It's just a good time where they're kind of just all having fun together, riffing off each other, and yeah, it's enjoyable.
They made the movie that you would want this team to make.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? They made the Paul Feig, Melissa McCarthy,
Yeah.
Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it's very much his version of a Ghostbusters.
Right.
That's more playful, a little more youthful. I'd say the humor is a little more youthful than
maybe at times there's a,
There's some mature humor, but it's not
Yeah.
as R-rated as Bridesmaids humor.
Definitely not.
In many ways.
No, it's a movie that probably will play better for kids.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, I loved Ghostbusters as a kid. Like, it should be a movie that appeals to kids,
Definitely,
I think.
yeah.
I don't have a problem with that at all. I felt like because the fan base, some of the fan base, a percentage of the fan base was so angry about the movie or nervous about the movie and, just not on the same wavelength as the marketing for the movie. They were like, we have to prove that we love the original Ghostbusters to these people as much as they do.
Yeah.
And I felt like they maybe overcompensated and went a little overboard with so many cast members making distracting cameos.
Yes, distracting is a very good word for it.
So many of the locations from the first movie seen on screen or referenced on screen. So many of the ghost characters. Even though the movie's plot line in terms of the ghosts is totally different, they still find ways to insert characters, which you've seen in the trailers, like Slimer and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Right.
And it's just like, there's barely a scene in this movie that goes by without some sort of overt or kind of quiet, subtle homage to the first movie. And after a while, I was like, we get it. You guys love Ghostbusters as much as we do. We want to love this Ghostbusters on its own merits. Just make your own movie. Did you ever feel that way?
I honestly think that was one of my biggest issues with this movie, is that so much of it felt like a rehashing, like a recycling of the old things. As far as you see Ecto 1, that's great, that's a good celebration. You see the origin of the Ghostbusters logo, which was it was
we
all
need
right.
to have an origin for everything.
Right? Does it
Who
deserve?
cares?
It's
Who
fine.
cares?
We know it exists. That's fine.
I mean, to me, the perfect example is there are two different times when someone says, "What do you want?" There's the famous scene where Annie Potts as Janine is like, "Ghostbusters, what do you want?"
Yeah.
They have Annie Potts make a cameo and say, "What do you want?" But then they also have the answering machine at the new Ghostbusters.
That's right.
Chris Hemsworth, who plays the new Janine, the secretary, the assistant, whatever you want to call him, Kevin. His answering machine message at the Ghostbusters office is, "Ghostbusters, what do you want?" Like,
That was a good accent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Within reason, let the movie be its own thing. And I
Yeah.
felt like the times when the movie was the best was when it was its own thing.
Definitely,
When
yeah.
it was these characters, and I think that's one of the strongest things about the movie, is that it's not Peter and Ray and Egon and Winston. These are four new characters. They don't feel like the old Ghostbusters.
Yeah, not at all.
They get to be their own characters, and they have their own different relationships. I was like, when the movie was about that, I thought was when the movie was the most entertaining.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
If they had just lifted all of the references, or maybe just half of them, I think it would have allowed so much
cut
more
them
room.
all out. Just cut them in half. Get a little bit less.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's talk some more about some of the things that we didn't like as much, which I know we both had a problem with the ending. Can we talk about the
Definitely.
ending? Again, we are talking about the ending. These are spoilers.
Yeah, big spoilers. I'd say that the last act of the movie things just went totally crazy, got messy. There's an action sequence that is just eye-numbing. There's just too much going on visually. We saw it in 3D, which, you know, was all right. There's things that pop out. There's things that come at you in typical 3D fashion. But I kind of left the theater with a headache just visually seeing all of this chaos unravel. And it just goes to an extreme that felt too playful and too silly, and it just didn't feel like it was in line with the voice of the rest of the movie to me.
Yeah, that was the one. I really enjoyed the movie overall, but that was the one part where I was starting to get kind of bored, frankly. At the moment where it's supposedly the most exciting was the part that I was least engaged with.
Right.
In terms of the 3D, I thought the 3D was kind of cool because, like, they do this thing where it's at least where we saw it in IMAX 3D, the frame is here, but the ghosts and some of like the proton pack beams and stuff, they kind of go outside the frame.
They do, yeah.
You know, so it's sort of like, it's a little playful with the way that they stretch the frame and the way the ghosts, you know, like they're supernatural. They can kind of extend beyond the borders of the movie, which I thought was kind of cool and a cool way to do it and something that was different than the original Ghostbusters, which I liked. The thing to me about the ending was it stopped being a comedy, really. It just became a big CGI fest.
Definitely.
And I feel like this sometimes is a problem for me personally with these Paul Feig movies where he kind of deconstructs genre movies. They're much better when they're making fun of the genre than they are when they try to kind of embody the genre. I felt that way about Spy, which was like a really funny movie but not a great spy movie. And I felt that way about The Heat, which was a really funny buddy cop movie, but not so much like an exciting cop movie at times, you know? And that was sort of how I felt about Ghostbusters. When they're kind of being really playful about it and funny, I was having a good time. But at the end, it seems like they're trying to be like a really exciting action movie, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, there's pilgrim ghosts and literally like they're fighting the logo. The guy turns into the logo.
That was a little too much for me.
Which feels very forced and strange.
Yeah.
And again, the Marshmallow Man, there's all this stuff, and it to me, as you said, it kind of got away from the spirit of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And I felt that was I thought the ending was disappointing.
I definitely agree. And I think that there was some sentimental moments that didn't feel in tune with the movie.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, when you see Kristen Wiig and you see Melissa McCarthy in a scene together, you want to see them, you want to laugh. You want to, you know, you're waiting for a joke to drop. You're waiting for a beat. But it has these moments in the end where one of them is saving the other, and then it kind of has this slow-mo sequence that's really emotional, and I was waiting for something silly to happen, and it didn't happen.
Well, first of all, they're like floating on obvious wires in a CGI green screen wonderland.
Yes,
they like literally filmed it in a room like this where they were like hanging. Like it looks
it didn't
cheesy.
Look good, yeah.
And the other thing is that the beginning of the movie does kind of set up an actual sort of character arc or sort of their relationship as kind of, you know, contentious, but the movie kind of, it just never really follows up with that. It becomes more and more about the plot and the ghosts. And I mean, to be fair, that's pretty much the original Ghostbusters also. But the original Ghostbusters doesn't try to really find this or force this kind of emotional moment at the end of the movie.
Yes.
You know?
You had mentioned before that what would it be like if this movie existed in the same universe as the original Ghostbusters and had the original Ghostbusters passed down their legacy and sort of trained the new women as their mentors.
Right, like a thought experiment, because this movie is definitely a reboot, right?
Definitely.
It has tons of references, meta references, but there was no old Ghostbusters in the past. Ghosts didn't exist before this. You know, they are the original, in this universe, they are the original Ghostbusters.
Right.
And I was just wondering what would the reaction have been if the movie had been basically the same, but a sequel instead of a reboot, where, you know, Dan Aykroyd was playing Ray and Bill Murray was playing Pete Venkman, and they kind of literally, instead of kind of more metaphorically, like literally passed down the proton pack to the new generation. Would people have been more, even if it was the same cast, would people have been more receptive to it?
I feel like they would have, but I think that shows what's so problematic about why people aren't receptive to this, because we would need those male characters to pass it down. So I think that sadly that shows that the fans would want, you know, their original male characters to found this new movie. Whereas this new movie, I think, gives the women agency in kind of creating their own legacy, and they're the ones that save the day. They're the ones that prove Ghost exists, rather than relying on, you know, the original guys that did it.
Yeah.
But I also wonder if thematically that would help the plot just be a little more enjoyable, rather than, you know, wasting so much time rehashing these things and explaining these origin stories. perhaps it would have cleaned things up a little bit more if it was in the same world.
Like we've discussed before, like it almost needs less of the old Ghostbusters, not more, right? Like that, like. You know, all the old Ghostbusters are in this movie.
Yeah.
They're not playing their characters, but they're all in here sort of giving the kind of thumbs up and, you know, go get them, essentially. And I think it's great that they're all on board and supportive of the movie. I think that's cool. But I almost, having seen the movie now, I kind of wish that was maybe more something they did on the press tour, and they had let the movie be its own thing a little bit more. I love some of the references. Like the one that I also really loved was at Columbia, at Erin's office, there's a panning shot of a hallway, and you see a bust of Harold Ramis in the background. And it's not even a bust of Egon, because he doesn't have the hair. He's got Harold Ramis's hair. And I thought, that's a lovely touch.
Right.
If you know Harold Ramis and you appreciate him, you'll see him in the background, but it's not a dialogue scene devoted to him. You know, that it was just, that's, to me, was, the movie needed, maybe not more, but those sort of references I liked a lot more than, here is a scene where Dan Aykroyd shows up in the middle of the climax of the movie. Let's stop everything on screen and have Dan Aykroyd do a bad New York accent taxi driver guy. Like, that to me is kind of self-defeating.
Yeah, I think subtle nods would have been better.
All right, I think that's going to wrap up our discussion of the new Ghostbusters, but we have lots more about the new Ghostbusters, the old Ghostbusters, and everything else going on in the world of film and TV at ScreenCrush.com, so be sure to check out our site. For Erin, I'm Matt. We'll see you next time.